If you listen to this podcast, you won't need any other guide afterward, but make sure to listen to it all the way through.
Definitely stick with us.
Because let's be honest, that feeling of wanting more control over your financial situation, it's almost universal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just reported that over half of us, like 53%, are planning a New Year's resolution about money this coming year.
Wow. Yeah.
That tells you something, right? We all crave that financial freedom, that, sense of security.
It really taps into something fundamental, doesn't it? That desire for stability.
Yeah.
In a world that often feels, well, uncertain, having some mastery over your money brings real peace of mind.
Exactly. And that's our mission today, really. We've distilled countless conversations about money, the nuts and bolts of saving, spending, investing, even taxes, crypto, buying a house, all that stuff.
The big topics.
Yeah, down to the crucial insights, the stuff that really makes a difference. Because think about this. The biggest cost we often face, it's the price of not knowing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the information we miss that can, really hold us back.
The impact of, let's call it financial illiteracy, it can be huge. It's not just missing opportunities.
Right.
It's, unknowingly making choices that hurt you down the line. For years sometimes.
Precisely. So our goal today is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Give you the core financial knowledge that can lead to, genuine success.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the kind of understanding that could realistically put you maybe in the top 5% of investors, and maybe even more importantly, just ease those money worries.
Nagging worries, yeah.
Ready to get started.
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's tackle this investing thing for beginners. There's this kind of myth out there, isn't there?
There really is.
That investing is only for, older folks, maybe over 40 with a big pile of savings already. Or that the only real investment for regular people is buying a house.
Yeah, where does that even come from? It's just become ingrained somehow.
Right.
And it creates this barrier. It makes investing seem untouchable for so many people.
Yeah. But the truth is, building that life, you actually enjoy travel, time with family, whatever your rich life looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It gets way more achievable when you grasp some basic investment ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So for someone completely new, never invested a dime, what's the absolute simplest first step?
Okay, easiest first step. Without a doubt, I'd say a target date fund.
A target date fund.
Okay.
Break that down for us. What is that?
Sure. So imagine just one single investment fund. It's already diversified for you.
Yeah.
And you just pick the one based on the year you think you might retire. So say 2060.
Right.
You look for a fund called something like Vanguard 2060 or Fidelity 2060. Schwab has them too. Big names offer these.
So it's literally just one fund I need to find and buy.
That's it. And the beauty is your only job really is to put money into it regularly.
Okay.
The fund itself is designed by experts. It's automatically spread across different things, mainly stocks and bonds. U.S. stocks, international stocks, different kinds of bonds, sometimes even a bit of real estate, all packed into one.
And this diversification thing, we hear that word a lot. Why is that so important?
Yeah, it's crucial. It's all about managing risk.
Okay.
If you own lots of different things, you're not wiped out if one specific company or, one sector does badly. Others might be doing well, and it smooths things out.
Right.
And with a target date fund, you don't have to be the expert picking all those stocks and bonds. The fund manager does all that work.
Gotcha. And you said they get more conservative as you get closer to retirement. How does that work?
Right. So as your target year, say 2060, gets nearer, the fund automatically changes its mix.
Right.
It gradually sells some of the riskier stuff, like stocks, which have higher growth potential but also more ups and downs, and buys more stable things like bonds. The idea is when you're close to needing the money, you want less volatility, more preservation.
That makes total sense. So it really is basically pick the year, keep putting money in.
That's the core of it, yeah. Open an account at a low-cost place like Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab. Choose your target date fund. And then this is really key.
That's the absolute must-do.
Set up automatic monthly transfers. Seriously.
Automation.
Treat it like a bill, like your rent or your phone bill. But this bill pays you back later. Aim for maybe 5% to 10% of your take-home pay to start. That's a good guideline.
Automatic transfers. That kind of takes the guesswork and the emotion out of it, doesn't it?
Completely. It just becomes a habit, something that happens in the background.
Right.
And, just to clarify what a fund actually is, We're usually talking about mutual funds or maybe ETFs, exchange-traded funds.
Yeah, let's quickly define that. People hear fund all the time.
Okay, so a fund is basically just a big basket, a collection of lots of different stocks and sometimes bonds too.
So instead of me buying Apple stock, then Google stock, then something else.
Exactly. The fund already owns maybe hundreds, even thousands of tiny pieces of all of those companies.
Ah, okay. So when I put my $100 in, it's automatically buying little bits of everything in the basket.
Precisely. That's the diversification we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Built right in. You don't need to spend hours researching which company is going to be the next big thing.
Okay, so forget trying to be a stock-picking genius overnight.
Oh, absolutely. Please forget that. Trying to actively trade, like constantly buying and selling to time the market. It's often compared to watching paint dry, but less productive.
Right.
Seriously, it's usually not fun, and most people who try it actually end up behind those who just buy and hold. Long-term investing should feel kind of boring, honestly. Automated.
Boring sounds good here. Okay, so set up automatic transfers, let the target date fund do its thing. What happens then?
Then you let the magic of compounding work over years and years. That's the real engine of wealth creation. It's not about getting lucky. It's about that slow, steady growth.
Compounding.
Hmm?
That's where your returns start earning their own returns, like a snowball rolling downhill.
Exactly like a snowball. Gets bigger and bigger, faster and faster the longer it rolls. Starting early is incredibly powerful because of this.
Okay, so I've got this investment account set up.
Yeah.
How should I think about it mentally? Because I know someone who kind of treated their investment account like a checking account.
Oh, no.
Yeah, just pulled money out for random expenses.
That's it.
That kills the whole point, right?
It totally undermines the growth potential. It's so important to make that mental shift.
Yeah.
Investment accounts are for building wealth. Long term. They are not your emergency fund or your fun money account.
Right. Different buckets for different purposes.
Exactly. You want to automate the whole flow. Paycheck hits checking. Then, boom, automatic transfers go out.
Where?
To your emergency savings, maybe have sub-accounts there for goals, like a car down payment or a vacation fund.
Okay.
Then to your investment account, that target date fund. Then maybe some to a separate account just for guilt-free spending money.
Oh, the fun money.
Yeah. And critically, an automatic payment to clear your credit card balance in full every single month.
That sounds really organized.
Like
a well-oiled machine. Maybe takes a bit of setup initially.
It does take maybe a few hours or a couple of weeks to get it all humming, but then it saves you so much stress and decision fatigue later, and it lets your investments just grow undisturbed.
Okay, so you mentioned the common idea that big wealth comes from, like selling a company or winning the lottery or maybe crypto fortunes.
Probably the flashy stuff.
Yeah, but you're pushing this steady, maybe less exciting, diversified fund approach. Can this really lead to significant wealth? Like, really?
Oh, absolutely. And we have tons of history to back it up. The stock market in the U.S., for example, has historically returned somewhere around 10–11% per year on average over very long periods.
Okay.
Even if you account for inflation eating away at that, you're still looking at maybe 7–8% average real return per year over decades.
Right. But percentages can feel a bit abstract. What does that actually mean for someone starting out?
Yeah, fair point. This is where a compound interest calculator is your best friend. Seriously, just Google one. MoneyChimp is a classic, easy one.
Okay.
Plug in some numbers. Your starting amount, even if it's small. How much you can realistically add each month or year. And use that average return, say 7%. Then just play with the timeline. See what happens over 10, 20, 30, 40 years. It's pretty eye-opening.
Let's try a quick example. Say someone starts with $5,000. Maybe savings, maybe a gift.
Okay.
And they manage to invest another $5,000 per year. That's what, just over $400 a month. Use that 7% return. What could that look like?
All right, so starting at, let's say, age 16 for fun, and they do that 5K year until age 30, that's 14 years.
Yeah.
That initial $5K plus the contributions growing at 7%, they'd have roughly $133,000.
Wow. Okay. Just from consistent saving. And if they kept going, same $5 a year until age 40, so 24 years total.
Now you're looking at around $336,000.
Okay.
Keep it going to age 50, pushing close to $736,000. And remember, this example assumes they never increase that $5,000 annual contribution, which is unlikely, right? Most people earn more over time.
That's a really good point. So these numbers could actually be conservative.
They could be. Now, let's imagine a slightly more realistic lifetime scenario. Maybe you start later. Maybe your income grows a lot.
Okay.
So at $5K again. But let's say over like 49 years, age 16 to 65, You average investing $30,000 per year. That sounds huge now, but maybe it's less early on, much more later in your career.
Right. And that
But at
price,
7%, that scenario gets you over $12 million.
12 million.
Yep. And if you bump that average return just slightly to 8%, it's over $17 million.
Okay. That really drives it home. The power of starting early-ish and just sticking with it
Yeah.
consistently.
Exactly. And the big lesson here is focus on those steady, decent long-term returns. Focus on contributing consistently over a long, long time. Forget chasing crazy high returns or get-rich-quick stuff.
Right.
Building real wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. Time and patience are your superpowers.
Earlier you mentioned the cost of ignorance and this idea that our biggest debt is the information we lack. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, it's this idea that not knowing things, especially about money or business, can cost you dearly. There's this great analogy.
Okay.
A father gives his son an old, beat-up car, tells him, go see what you can get for this.
Right.
Son goes to a used car lot. They offer him maybe $1,000. He goes to a junkyard. They offer $500 for scrap.
Okay.
Then he takes it to this vintage car club meeting. An old collector sees it, recognizes it's super rare, maybe needs restoration, but is intrinsically valuable, offers him $100,000 for it.
Whoa. Huge difference.
Exactly. The car didn't change. What changed was who he showed it to, who understood its real value.
Oh, okay.
And that's the lesson for finance and business. Value depends on who you connect with. It's about finding the people, the markets, the situations that value you or what you offer the most, finding where the big fish are, so to speak.
So it's about understanding different playing fields and knowing where your skills or assets are most appreciated.
Precisely. Getting really wealthy often means getting access to another room, Understanding a different set of money games that most people don't even know exist. The basic principles might be the same: create value, manage risk, but the scale and the rules can be very different. Information and understanding are the keys to unlock those doors.
It's like levels in a game, almost. And you need the right knowledge to get to the next level.
That's a good way to put it. And a big part of leveling up is understanding and using leverage effectively.
Leverage. Okay, we hear that word a lot, especially in business talk.
Yeah.
How does it apply to building personal wealth?
Leverage basically is just the difference between your input and your output.
Okay.
High leverage means you get a lot out for relatively little input once the system's set up. Low leverage means lots of effort for small results. And there are different types of leverage you can use.
Like what? Can you give some examples?
Sure. The most basic is labor. First, maybe you work for someone else trading time for money. Then maybe you work for yourself. Still time for money, but more control. The next step, having other people work for you. That multiplies your output beyond your own time. That's labor leverage.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
Media is huge leverage today. Create something valuable once, a book, a course, this podcast,
Right.
and it can reach thousands, millions without you putting in more time for each person. Capital is another big one. Using money to make more money through investing. Your money works while you sleep. And then there's technology. Building software, an app, a platform. Hugely scalable, can serve millions with relatively low extra effort per user once it's built.
So the goal is to kind of stack these different types of leverage or use multiple types.
Absolutely. Think about the biggest companies, right? Google, Amazon, they use all these forms of leverage. Other people's capital investors, media, content, ads, massive labor forces, and incredibly scalable technology. They layer it all together.
It's about getting more bang for your buck or more impact for your effort. So how do we, as individuals, start figuring out our own unfair advantage? Where do we have leverage?
Great question. Here's a practical exercise I really like. Get a whiteboard or just a piece of paper, or even do it mentally. Divide it into two: skills and money.
Okay, skills and money.
Under skills, list everything you're genuinely good at. Everything. Communication, organizing, coding, specific knowledge, networking, even stuff that seems unrelated to money.
Right.
Be honest and thorough.
Right, don't censor yourself.
Exactly. Then, under money, start brainstorming. How could I apply these specific skills to make the most money? And this often involves thinking about a kind of formula.
A formula. Yeah.
Okay, something like your skills plus how you apply them, the size of the sector you apply them in, plus the profitability of that business type, plus how valuable your specific solution is in that context.
Whoa, okay. So it's not just having the skill, it's where you point it.
Precisely. Like, say you're amazing at social media marketing. You could apply that to helping a local corner shop. Might make a decent income. Or you could apply those exact same skills to, say, a cutting-edge biotech firm trying to attract billions in investment.
Ah, vastly different potential outcome.
Totally different scale and potential reward, right? It's about finding those high cash flow sectors, Silicon Valley tech, Wall Street finance, maybe specialized healthcare, high-end consulting where your unique skills, whatever they are highly valued and highly paid.
So find the hungriest market for what you specifically offer.
Yes, think about a skilled writer, a copywriter.
Okay.
They could write general marketing stuff for anyone, make okay money. Or they could specialize, become an expert medical writer who deeply understands clinical trials and FDA regulations. That niche skill in that high-stakes field. Huge earning potential.
It's finding that sweet spot where your unique talent meets a really valuable market need. And you mentioned it's not always just about salary, right? There are other ways to structure deals.
Absolutely critical point. Don't just think salary, especially in high-growth areas.
Yeah.
Can you negotiate differently? Maybe a slightly lower base pay, but you get a percentage of the revenue increase you generate.
Oh, interesting.
Or, even better sometimes, can you get equity? Stock options. Especially in startups or tech. That's how you get those potentially life-changing payouts if the company does really well, like goes public with an IPO.
Right, an IPO, initial public offering, when a company first sells shares to the public.
Exactly. That shift from just being an earner to being an owner, even a small owner, is a huge mental and financial shift.
And that ties right into understanding the whole tax game, doesn't it? Being an owner versus just an earner.
Oh, massively. Understanding taxes, and specifically legal tax avoidance, not evasion, is absolutely fundamental to building and keeping wealth. It's a game the wealthy understand and play very strategically. Knowing even the basics can save you a fortune over time.
Can you give some examples? How do wealthier folks or corporations approach taxes differently than, say, someone earning a good salary?
Sure. One classic strategy for people with large stock portfolios is borrowing against their shares instead of selling them.
Why do that?
Because if you sell stocks that have gone up a lot, you pay capital gains tax right away. But if you take out a loan using those stocks as collateral, you get cash tax-free. You only pay tax when you eventually sell the shares, maybe years later, or potentially never if managed carefully through estate planning.
Wow, okay. Tax-free cash.
Or a time, yes. Another thing is state arbitrage, physically moving to a state with no income tax, like Florida or Texas, if your income is high enough to make the move worthwhile.
Right. We hear about that.
And then there are specific things in the tax code, like in the U.S., qualified small business stock, or QSB. If you invest early in certain startups and hold the stock for over 5 years, your gains might be completely tax-free up to a certain limit. Huge advantage.
So it's about structuring things intentionally to minimize tax legally. It sounds way more involved than just filing your return once a year.
It's definitely a proactive strategy. The tax code is complex. People who take the time to understand it, or more commonly hire good advisors who understand it, can often significantly lower their lifetime tax bill. Getting good tax advice is crucial as your assets grow.
It really hammers home that difference between being an earner, taxed heavily on income, versus an owner of assets, where the tax rules can be much more favorable.
Exactly. The goal for many is to make that transition from primarily earning income to primarily owning appreciating tax-advantaged capital.
Okay, switching gears a bit, let's talk about how you think about allocating capital. What's your personal philosophy on dividing up your money?
Honestly, my own approach is deliberately simple. Really simple. It's basically cash for emergencies and opportunities. My home, which is primarily a lifestyle choice, we can talk about that.
Okay.
Broad index funds for the bulk of my long-term investments, and then a few individual company shares, but only because I'm involved with those companies, like on the board. That's pretty much it.
Index funds keep coming up. They seem central. Why are they such a core part for you? What's the thinking there?
For me, it boils down to maximizing endurance, maximizing the probability of sticking with it and getting decent average returns over a very long time.
Not trying to beat the market.
Exactly. Trying to consistently beat the market by picking stocks is incredibly hard. The data just shows very, very few people, even professionals, manage it over the long haul.
So embrace the average and just let it compound.
That's the idea. My own parents are actually a perfect example.
Oh, yeah.
Zero interest in finance, no special knowledge. But for like 40 years, they just consistently put money into basic index funds every month, dollar cost averaging.
Right.
Their results, Probably better than 95%, maybe 97% of all investors out there, just through consistency and letting the market average work for them.
Okay, quick refreshers. Dollar cost averaging and index fund.
Sure. Dollar cost averaging just means investing the same fixed dollar amount regularly, like $200 every month, no matter if the market is up or down.
Yeah.
It averages out your purchase price over time, takes timing out of the equation.
Makes sense.
And an index fund, as we said, is just a fund that owns basically all the stocks in a specific market index, like the S&P 500 in the US, which represents 500 of the largest companies.
Yeah.
So you own a tiny slice of the whole economy, essentially.
Got it. So it's the total opposite of trying to find the needle in the haystack, the next big stock.
Completely. And the power of just sticking with it.
Yeah.
Look at Warren Buffett. People know he's rich, but something like 99% of his wealth was built after age 60.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Decades and decades of patient compounding. Or there's that famous story of Ronald Reed, the janitor who died leaving millions.
Oh, I think I heard about him.
Yeah. He just quietly bought blue chip stocks his whole life with his modest savings, reinvested the dividends, and let it sit for decades. Became a multimillionaire through sheer endurance.
It really shows that endurance and patience are maybe more important than genius-level stock picking.
Yeah.
And endurance is something we can actually control, right?
That's exactly it. Staying patient, staying invested through ups and downs, that's hard, but it's possible. Consistently picking winners year after year, much, much harder, maybe impossible for most.
Okay, let's talk about housing then. You mentioned your home is more lifestyle. For so many people, buying a house is the main wealth-building plan. What is your take on that?
Yeah, my take is viewing your primary home mainly as a great investment can be a bit misleading.
No. Why is that?
Well, think about it. So many people can buy houses. Access is pretty broad, relatively speaking. When an asset is that accessible, it's hard for it to deliver truly amazing outsized returns compared to other things.
Because it's not scarce or exclusive.
Exactly. And if you look at long-term historical data, like 100+ years in places like the US and UK, after you adjust for inflation, house prices have actually been pretty flat overall.
Really? Flat. But prices have gone up so much recently.
That's true. Recent decades have seen big gains, but historically, that looks more like an anomaly, maybe driven by falling interest rates and other specific factors, not the typical long-run trend.
So buying a house just to build wealth, especially if it means, say, you can't move easily for a better job, that might not be the best strategy.
I'd argue against it, yeah. Especially now, when good quality rentals are often available, taking on a massive mortgage for an asset that historically hasn't been a stellar investment, but that seems risky to me, especially if it locks you down geographically.
It's about looking at the long view, the historical data, not just the last 10 or 20 years.
Precisely. Don't just assume house prices always go up means it's a guaranteed path to riches. Focus on building wealth through things with a better, longer track record, like diversified investments.
Okay, let's pivot to something definitely modern. Crypto and blockchain. Super hot topic, lots of buzz, but still confusing for many. Can you break down blockchain itself? What is it, simply?
Okay, simplest way to think of blockchain. It's like a shared digital ledger or database that's copied across tons of computers.
A shared database.
Yeah, but it's decentralized. No single person or company controls it. And it's public, or at least transparent to participants. Everyone on the network can see the entries, and complex math keeps it secure and prevents tampering.
So it gets rid of the need for a middleman, like a bank, to verify things.
Exactly. It creates trust through the technology itself, through transparency and math, not by relying on a central authority. It's like a source of truth for digital stuff.
And this tech, it's bigger than just money, right?
Oh, way bigger.
Okay.
Bitcoin was the first big use case, but the core idea, secure, transparent, decentralized record keeping, has potential everywhere. Supply chains, voting systems, digital identity, art ownership, tons of areas.
So what's special about the cryptocurrency part, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc.?
Well, one key innovation was building in incentives. People who help run the network, validate transactions, provide computing power, they get rewarded with new units of the network's cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin.
Ah, so it pays people to maintain the system.
Right. It creates this self-sustaining ecosystem, and it lets anyone, anywhere, invest in this new technology just by buying a small fraction of a coin.
And you said it's globally accessible.
Yeah, that's a huge aspect. Bitcoin is Bitcoin, whether you're in Brazil or Belgium. It potentially bypasses traditional banking systems and borders, creating a more open global financial layer.
Are we seeing real uses beyond just trading the coins?
Definitely starting to. Web3 gaming is a big one. Games built on blockchains where players truly own their in-game items, swords, skins, land as unique digital tokens, NFTs.
NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
Right. You can buy, sell, trade these items outside the game on blockchain marketplaces. It's creating real economies. Also, holding a crypto like Ethereum means you might benefit if more apps and services get built on the Ethereum network, increasing demand for the ETH token itself. Web3 is this idea of a more decentralized internet built on these technologies.
Okay, so if someone's curious, wants to maybe dip a toe in, what are the first practical steps for investing in crypto?
It's gotten much easier. You can open an account on major regulated exchanges. Think Coinbase, Kraken, Crypto.com, Gemini.
Right.
Some digital banks, or even PayPal, now offer limited crypto buying and selling, which can be an easy starting point, though maybe with fewer features.
And what about security? We hear about hacks.
Yeah.
You mentioned self-custody.
Yeah, this is important, especially if you invest more significant amounts. Exchanges are convenient, but they hold your crypto for you. Self-custody means you hold the private keys that control your coins.
How?
Usually with a hardware wallet, a little device like a USB stick from companies like Ledger or Trezor. It keeps your keys offline, much safer from online hacks. But then you're responsible for securing that device and your backup seed phrase.
That seed phrase is like the master key.
Exactly. Lose it. And you could lose your crypto forever. So more security, but also more personal responsibility.
Okay, final big topic. For listeners stuck in that paycheck-to-paycheck grind, feeling stressed, barely making ends meet, what's the absolute first thing they need to do to break out?
The very, very first thing is a mindset shift. Realize that if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you are frankly the perfect customer for the system.
How so?
Banks love the interest on your debt. Corporations love your constant spending. The government likes the reliable tax revenue from employed consumers. You're fueling their success. To break free, you have to decide consciously to prioritize your financial health first.
It's like realizing you're playing their game and you need to start playing your own.
Exactly. Think of it like your finances are a sinking boat.
Okay.
Job number one isn't bailing water, it's plugging the leaks. Stop the excessive spending. If you have less than, say, $2,000 in emergency savings and you have credit card debt, you are absolutely in the financial danger zone. Full stop.
So what kind of leaks need plugging? What drastic steps should someone in that zone consider?
You got to get ruthless, at least for a while. Cut all non-essentials. Restaurants, vacations, new clothes you don't need, multiple streaming services, expensive hobbies. Cut it all.
That sounds harsh.
It is harsh. But it's not just about saving the money directly. It's about freeing up your time, the hours you spent watching Netflix or going out. You need that time now to learn new skills and find ways to earn more money.
So cut spending and reallocate the saved time to increasing income.
Yes. Sell stuff you don't need. Anything of value lying around, sell it. Can you downsize your living situation temporarily? Cheaper apartment, roommate, do it. Pour all that saved money and freed up energy into getting your income up, second job, side hustle, learning a skill for a better paying job.
That sounds like a period of really intense focus, maybe serious sacrifice.
Ah,
It's tough, especially with social pressures, dating, wanting to enjoy life.
it is tough, no question. There will be social sacrifices. You might feel like you're missing out, but you have to choose your hard.
Choose your art.
Yeah. Is it the short-term, intense hardship of focused sacrifice and discipline? Or is it the long-term, grinding hardship of always worrying about money, always being one emergency away from disaster? Where you put your focus, that's where you'll get results.
Sure.
Building wealth isn't about being greedy. It's about building a life with less worry, more freedom. And sometimes that requires a season, a period of intense focus and saying no to other things.
Thinking in life seasons could help manage that. And it probably takes a strong minority mindset, right?
Yeah.
Not following the crowd's spending habits, ignoring the Instagram lifestyles.
Oh, completely. The pressure to keep up is immense. You have to deliberately choose to live differently, at least for a while. Be frugal even when maybe you technically could spend more. I remember when my first business started doing okay, I was still driving a really beat-up car and living super simply for years.
Right, delayed gratification.
You also have to watch the emotional triggers for spending. Loneliness, boredom, stress. Those can lead to impulse buys, that little dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And that emotional state also makes you vulnerable to get-rich-quick scams. When you're desperate or emotional, logic goes out the window. That's why the mindset, the discipline, it comes before the fancy investment strategies. It's the foundation.
It really feels like a long game. Demands intention, knowing your priorities, and being willing to make those tough short-term choices for long-term freedom.
Absolutely. It's about taking control, learning the rules, and consistently making choices that serve your future self.
Well, this has been incredibly thorough. Wow, we've covered so much ground, from just starting out with index funds to leverage, taxes, crypto, digging out of debt, hopefully giving everyone listening a much clearer path forward.
Yeah, and just remember, it all starts with that first step, whatever it is, just taking some action, however small, and committing to keep learning and keep going. That's what really counts.
See you soon with another guide like this.